My name is Margot, and I'm 72 years old. What I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. I was sitting in my neighbor Eleanor's kitchen, holding the teacup I'd given her last Christmas, when I found the thing that proved the kind old woman next door wasn't Eleanor. She was the ghost of a pain I thought I had buried 40 years ago. Please, settle in, my darling. This story is about the high cost of holding a grudge and the impossible grace of letting it go. For the last 5 years, I lived next door to Eleanor, a quiet, frail woman in her late 70s. She was the best neighbor a widow could ask for. Every Tuesday, I'd bake her a loaf of banana bread. Every Wednesday, she'd bring me a bag of fresh lemons from her tree. We were two old souls keeping each other anchored. But 5 years ago, my world was far from serene. That was the year I lost my husband, George. After the funeral, the house felt too large, the silence too loud. That's when Eleanor moved in. She was a silent guardian, a comforting presence. She had a gentle laugh and an old-fashioned way of speaking that always felt like a warm hug. You see, I had a complicated past with family. I had one sister, Vivian. We were inseparable as children. But when our parents passed in a sudden accident when I was 30, Vivian showed me a side of her heart I could never forgive. She cleaned out their accounts, stole my half of the inheritance, enough money to change both our lives, and vanished. She left me with nothing but the grief and a bitter note saying I was too weak to handle money anyway. The money wasn't the worst part, darling. It was the absolute, cruel silence. For 40 years, I hated her. I pictured her living a lavish life, spending my security, my future, on clothes and cruises. I married George, and we built a modest life, but that wound, the feeling of being discarded by your own blood, never fully healed. And that brings us back to Eleanor's kitchen. I was cleaning up after our Tuesday tea. Eleanor had gone for her weekly doctor's appointment. As I reached into the cupboard for the tea caddy, my fingers brushed against a small silver box hidden behind the spices. I shouldn't have opened it, but curiosity, that wicked little thing, took hold. Inside, resting on a velvet cloth, was a small silver locket. It wasn't worth much, but my heart stopped. I knew that locket. It was the one our mother had worn every day until her death. She had promised it to me. I had never told Eleanor about the locket, or about Vivian, or about my parents. Yet here it was. My hands started to shake. I turned the locket over. Engraved faintly on the back were the initials V.M. Vivian Marie. It wasn't Eleanor. It was Vivian, my sister, my betrayer. She wasn't living some grand, far-off life. She was living next door. She had been here, watching me, for 5 years. I closed the box and replaced it, the reality crushing the air out of my lungs. I drove to the local library. I needed a private space to think. I didn't search for Vivian Marie. I typed in Vivian, my parents' maiden name, and hit enter. The first result was an old newspaper article. It was a picture of Eleanor, 4 years younger, smiling, next to the headline, "Local woman found successful real estate firm." The article used her married name, Eleanor Brooks, the name she was using now. The woman who had stolen my life savings was a successful real estate mogul. And she was sick. I remembered the doctor's visits. I had a choice. Call the police and demand justice, or play her game. The second option felt crueler, more satisfying. I decided to watch the snake. I started paying closer attention. The small, barely visible scar above her eyebrow, a bicycle accident when she was 10, the nervous way she tapped her fingers when she lied, a habit I thought only I remembered. It was her, all the small, familiar things I had been comforting next to all these years. A few weeks later, her health took a sudden turn. I found her on her kitchen floor. The ambulance came. I told the paramedics I'm her next of kin. A lie, but a necessary one. At the hospital, she was unconscious. A kind nurse handed me a small box with her personal effects. I found her wallet. It held an old driver's license, her real name, Vivian Marie Hayes. It also held a key to a safe deposit box. I held that key in my hand. It represented everything: the money, the betrayal, the lies. The old Margot would have raced to the bank. The new Margot, the one hardened by 40 years, knew the time wasn't right. I was waiting for her to confess. I needed to hear her say my name and say sorry. Over the next few weeks, I visited her daily. She was fragile, barely coherent. One day, she gripped my hand. Her voice was a dry whisper. Margot, she tried to say. But all she managed was, I'm sorry. She was confusing me for someone else, maybe a nurse. But the word hung in the air. The one word I had waited 40 decades to hear. I knew the end was near. I had to choose: walk away and let the secret die with her, or force the confrontation for the truth. Justice demands confrontation, but peace requires something entirely different. I brought the silver box and the silver locket with me. I sat beside her hospital bed. The room was quiet save for the rhythmic beep of the monitor. Her eyes fluttered open. For the first time in 5 years, her eyes weren't those of a kind neighbor. They were the eyes of my little sister, filled with terror. "Vivian," I said, my voice calm but firm, "why did you steal our inheritance?" She tried to pull away, but she was too weak. "Margot, it wasn't supposed to be like this," she wept, her voice barely audible. I was terrified. I thought I needed the money to start a new life. I was too young to know better." She confessed everything. The real estate business, the new name, the move next door. It was an attempt to monitor me, to ease her conscience. I slid the silver locket into her hand. "Mother wanted me to have this, Vivian. She wanted us to have each other." I told her about the safe deposit key I found. She squeezed the locket. The key is for you. It's not just money, Margot. It's the original amount plus all the accrued interest over 40 years. It's more than you can imagine. I never touched your portion. It was my way of keeping you whole." I looked at my sister, broken and dying, and realized the act of forgiveness wasn't for her. It was for me. It was letting go of the heavy, bitter sack of anger I had carried for 40 years. I squeezed her hand. "I forgive you, Vivian." She sighed, a deep, rattling sound that brought tears to my eyes. A few minutes later, she was gone. The next day, I went to the bank with her son, Jeremy. He was astonished when he saw the contents of the safe deposit box. It was a fortune. The original inheritance had multiplied exponentially. He stared at the documents, then at me. "I had no idea," he whispered. I looked at him, and I saw a good, honest man, a son who deserved a good legacy. I divided the money into 3 parts: a portion for Jeremy to secure his life, Vivian's true son, a substantial portion for myself, and the largest share to found a local center for women helping them start over. I named it the Marie Center, after our mother. I learned that day that sometimes the greatest justice isn't found in a courtroom, but in the quiet of your own heart. Forgiveness didn't bring back the years, but it gave me back my peace. And what greater inheritance could there be, my darling? If you've been carrying a heavy weight of anger, let this be your permission to set it down. You deserve peace. Follow Auntie Whispers for more wisdom. We'll talk soon.